Hello, 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 everybody. How is everybody today? This is Barbara Moore, and I have COPD. I was diagnosed in 2016 at the age of 60. I always do this. I get on and then I have to fix my hair. Um, I have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. I have heart failure. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I have GERD. How wonderful is that, eh? Hi, Janice. Nice to meet you. Nice to have you join us today. So, I have told very little about actually myself, and I thought today would be a good time to redo this video that has been up and nobody can hear it, called The Things That Changed. Hi, Candace. How are you? Nice to have you join us today. Norma, Beverly. Um, so, hi, Emily. Don't mean to sound surprised that you're here. Just whatever. So, I was born in 1956. I'm going to be 67 this this year. 1956, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I'm going to be 67 this year. In fact, Saturday is my birthday. So I'm, you know, how do we feel about that when we're this age? I am likely to uh, I am likely to outlive my parents, which both of my parents died at 68. So that will be nice. My sister has outlived both of them by several years. And yeah, so I was born in 1956, and I was born into a family of smokers. So I was premature when I was born, and I was a twin. Unfortunately, my twin died at birth, or shortly after. And so I was a preemie. I don't know how many pounds. I was the fifth of five kids. And so nobody really cared how many pounds I was or whatever. My mother always said that I, my, my head would fit in a teacup. So that'll tell you how big I was, whatever. So I was born into a family of smokers. Everybody smoked, as it was in the day, right? In the 50s, there was a lot of prevalence of smoking. My mother was a heavy smoker. My mother smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day at the end. And my grandmother smoked, my father smoked, all of my sisters smoked. Everybody seemed to take up the habit around 14 or 15 years old, right? As did I. And, it's a funny thing how our family smoked and never thought of going outside, never thought to take it outside. My mother would not have had any of that. It was her house and she would do what she wanted in it, and she did. Uh, Very seldom actually did they even open windows. So you could walk into our house and you could cut the air with a knife, right? They didn't know any better in those days. They had no idea. So by the time I was 5 years old, I think I had had 3 bouts of pneumonia. I'd been in the hospital twice with pneumonia. Now, I can remember my mother sitting on the side of the bed when the doctor came, because, in those days, the doctors did house calls, right? And I can remember my mother sitting on the side of the bed, smoking a cigarette, and the doctor saying she has pneumonia, she has to go in the hospital, and never saying anything to her about the cigarette that was in her hand, right? Burning cigarette. But anyways, like I said, they didn't know in those days. So we have to be careful that we um, forgive them for their mistakes, right? I made a lot of mistakes with my kids. And I hope that at some point in the future, they can uh, they can forgive me for what I did. Um, I yelled too much, and I kind of had tantrums with them, and got upset when they didn't behave themselves. I mean, looking back now, what difference does it make, right? So as I got on, started going to school, um, I guess I was a little more active or whatever. I wasn't in the house all day with smoke. And, my lungs kind of get developed. Do you know that your lungs don't actually develop until you're 12 years old? It's a common fact that I didn't know until very, very recently, right? So when you think of it in that context, having been born a preemie, having 2 or 3 bouts of pneumonia before 5 years old, um, there's a bit of compromising to your lungs, right? So I had 3 babies in 3 years. I got married when I was 21. By 22, I was pregnant. I had 3 babies in 3 years. I would have had another one. My husband would have let me, but he wouldn't let me. And so I sent him to get a vasectomy. Hope that's not too private for everybody. And I loved, loved every minute of having babies. So 3 in 3 years. And I ran daycare, a home daycare, so that I could stay home and raise them. My kids never went to daycare. And I didn't go out to work, like leave the house for work, until my daughter was in grade 2. And at that point, she was old enough for the boys to take care of her. And they all went to the same school and they left at the same time and everything, right? So, yeah, that was my life, right? Babies, babies, babies. I loved them. I worked from the time that I was 14 years old. Some jobs were good ones and some sucked the life out of me. I ended up being a teacher, and each job led me to that destination, which is what I had always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a teacher. And I was a good teacher. I was really good. In fact, if you asked my students today, they would probably say that I was too lenient. I put up with a lot of crap, but I loved my job. I loved teaching. And every day that I went into the classroom, I would have students who would say that they adored me. And I was like, oh, I love this job. I get paid for it and everything, right? So, yeah, I worked towards a goal. I went to school um, all through my adult life. I went to um, continuing education at college, 2 nights a week, and worked full time and worked towards, well, I guess I was learning to teach, right? And so I loved every moment of it. I absolutely adored that job. It was the biggest disappointment for me when I was diagnosed because they didn't make any accommodations for me at all. And I ended up leaving it very bitterly after 15 years without a handshake or thank you. Anyways, it was what it was, and it was good while it lasted, right? But as employers will do, they did not acknowledge it because they didn't want to be responsible for it, right? They were afraid that I was going to ask them for something and it would cost them something. And so if they just ignored it and waited it out, which is exactly what happened, um, I would get tired and I would leave, right? And I did. And that's what happened. So um, I left and I was very bitter, and I was bitter for some time, kind of over it now, a little bit. Can't do anything about it, right? So when my daughter was born, she was the last baby. Um, I had to have my gallbladder out. Sometimes, this happens. I don't know if it happened to anybody else, but um, sometimes pregnancy causes it. For me, it was everybody in my family had had their gallbladder out, so it was my turn, right? And I went in and had my gallbladder out, and this would have been in the 80s. And I had blood clots, and they went to my lungs. So, being born a preemie, having pneumonia when you're young, before your lungs are actually developed, and then as your lungs are developed and having blood clots and going to your lungs, it was something that really compromised me. And the only thing that was good about it was that I wasn't. Oh, thank you, Candace. I appreciate that. Um, the only thing is that when I was pregnant with my daughter, I quit smoking. And thank God for that, because if I had been a smoker at that time, it could have been much worse, right? And the other thing is that um, the doctors thought that I was a smoker, and so when I was coughing, trying to clear, um, I was trying to clear it. Uh, they weren't listening to me. They were saying, "Oh, she's a smoker," and I was like, they had me over sedated, and I just heard that, and I said to the doctor, "I don't smoke." And he said, "Oh my goodness, and you're coughing like this, so we better look." And he looked, and there was a huge blood clot in my leg. And before they could do anything about it, it had traveled to my lungs. So big hit to the lungs. So it's no wonder, right? And of course, I was a smoker. I was a pack a day smoker. Um, Loved my cigarettes, as most of us do. I think if you're not a smoker, you haven't been a smoker, I don't think you can understand how much we loved it. It was such a release for us, right? And I loved every minute of smoking. There was never a smoke that I saw that I didn't actually love. Not a good thing, and I understand that now. I get it. But um, at some point, we have to learn to forgive ourselves for our past. We have to stop beating ourselves up. We have to stop kicking ourselves in the ass all the time. What happened, happened, and we can't change it. No matter how bad we feel, we cannot change what happened in the past. I don't sleep well, and I think I've said this a million times. I don't sleep well. I am so tired when I get up. I am tired when I go to bed, but I get into bed and I sleep for maybe an hour, and then I'm awake, and I'm looking around the room. I don't want to get up. I don't want to sit by myself in the middle of the night. I don't want to get out of bed. So I kind of lay there and pray to God I'm going to go back to sleep, which I sometimes do, but I rarely don't. I rarely do, anyways. Sometimes I do, but I not very late. So when I worked, and I worked all my life, I'd be up at 5:30, and I'd be like, okay, let's get the day done. And I'd be up at 5:30 in the morning, and I'd be like, my feet would hit the floor, and I'd start running. And I used to go until 11:30 at night and get up the next day and do it all over again. When I was working 10 years ago, um, I was the driver. I drove everybody back and forth, up and down. We live on the mountain. In Hamilton, we have a mountain, something very similar to Pennsylvania. and there's the mountain where, anyways, I would drive people everywhere, right? That all changed when I was diagnosed. Once I was diagnosed in 2016, I never drove again. And I became the passenger instead of the driver, which was really funny to me. I don't know why I stopped driving. Somebody was always driving for me, and somebody was always going with me no matter where I went. So um, I just became the passenger, right? So that's one of the major things that kind of changed when I was diagnosed. Um, I sleep late in the day because I don't sleep at night. I sleep late in the day. And I make no apology for it. In fact, I've learned to be kind to myself. This is one of the things that I have learned with this. And I think, my daughter's a social worker, and she gave me permission. I wish everybody had a daughter like her, somebody who would, as soon as I got sick, she took over. And she said to me, Mom, this is it. You have to advocate for yourself. And I've tried to put that across to everybody, to advocate for yourself. You have to learn to be kind to yourself. You have to stop beating yourself up about things that happened. And I have learned to be kind to myself. In fact, maybe a bit too kind to myself. I don't know. I've given myself, I've forgiven myself for the past, and uh, abdicate on my behalf with no apology. So I don't worry about when I ask a doctor. I don't worry about when I'm looking for something to ask for it. I don't ever, I don't ever apologize for that anymore. I used to, one of the first things that would come out of my mouth is, I'm sorry. How many people do that? Um, constantly um, say, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I need this. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't do that anymore. Right. And because it's a big deal because we are so used to saying how sorry we are about everything, especially if it involves us. You've got to stop doing that. You've got to stop saying you're sorry to people. Um, if you need something, you need to ask it. And I know that these are old habits that die hard, but hey, when you get it aligned in your brain and you realize what you were doing and why you're doing it, you can get it straightened out so that it's a little more logical, right? We're not really sorry because we asked and we need something, right? Um, I'm getting better at saying no. I'm getting better at saying I don't want to or I can't. And I'm getting better at saying, yes, I will. I want to do this. I want to do that. When I feel like it, I like to go out, but I don't always feel like it. And I don't always like to go out because when we go out, we spend money and we're on a fixed income. And, you know, it's not easy to go out and spend money every day, right? So I don't know, I'm looking for things to do that don't require a lot of money. Those things are pretty hard. They're far and few between. There's not a lot of them. Things that we can do that we're not spending money on, right? And everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody's on the same fixed income kind of thing, right? What I haven't learned to do is to stop working. And this is a huge problem for me. You know, I see girlfriends that are reading books all day, sit on their porch and read books all day, or um, do crafts. Wow. And I don't. I work all the time. I work every day, 5 days a week. And when I do take a day off to go out or to do something, I feel really bad. Like, you know, I should be writing an article. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And I'm trying to work past the shoulds of what I'm doing to myself because why? Why do I have to work all the time? I don't. Um, so I'm working on that. I'm still working on changing myself and making myself into the person that I want to be. You know, it doesn't change with COPD. COPD is what it is, and it it sucks. It's a really, really, really bad disease to have. Um, you know, and here's another reason why we have to stop saying I'm sorry. Why are we saying I'm sorry? This is a horrible disease. So many people are not strong enough to have lived with this kind of a disease, and yet we are doing it every single day. Why are we saying I'm sorry? We deserve to ask for things and to get help. We deserve to live a better life. You know, our governments are not doing stuff for us. They should be doing more research and development. They should be taking better care of us by helping to provide a proper lifestyle for us. So many of us are by ourselves and we have no help. I'm not, and I'm very, very, very lucky. But many of you are by yourself and you deserve to have help. You deserve to have people helping you. We don't need to go to a nursing home. That's not the object of this game. What we need is help in with everyday life. And why aren't we getting it? I don't understand. Anyways, I haven't learned to stop working, but I have learned a lot of good things. And most of it is because I have COPD. I want to thank everybody who came today. I really appreciate your attendance and the fact that you're interested in what I have to say. I hope it's I hope it gives you some food for thought. That's all I ask. Yes, Mary, I know it's terrible. I can't imagine how people do it on their own. I don't even think I could. I don't even want to talk about it because I sometimes think about what would happen if my husband wasn't here, and I kind of I get shivers, right? Because I don't know how I would manage. But next week we're going to talk about GERD. So bring your questions and your answers because I'm going to tell you some funny stories about GERD. This is Barbara Moore for Catch Your Breath 60. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.